I'm sure we are good to start now. Perfect. So we have Kevin Davis with us, who has 20 years of on-ground project management experience. He has successfully trained 5,000 plus students with KnowledgeHut, and there are more than 200 plus batches. He has also developed and managed the program office for Clark Atlanta University. So he has worked for many companies like Coca-Cola, JP Morgan, Honda, uh, etc., to name a few. So over to you, Kevin.
Okay. Again, like she said, my name is Kevin Davis. I come an IT baby. I came from the IT industry. That's my area of concentration. And I have, like she mentioned, like Singha mentioned, I was hired on with KnowledgeHut for an 18-month period to help develop the training or the PMP training program for the 5-week program that we're introducing to you today. And I've spent the last 9 years, I guess, approximately 9 years instructing PMP courses. I'm double Scrum certified with Scrum Alliance and through Scrum Study along with my PMI ACP. So I've taught various courses in those as well. Probably project managed maybe 5 or 6 hybrid, they call them hybrid projects today, meaning a combination of both the adaptive framework and the traditional / predictive frameworks, right? So that's a little bit about my background. Next slide. Okay, so now is this your area?
Oh, no, there's no issues. We have
No, is this your area? Is this your area here?
This one?
Yes.
No, we have someone who is changing the slide.
Okay. Did you turn over host to me?
Sure.
Okay, this is a little bit about Upgrad. This is your area. Is that not correct? What's on screen now is information about Upgrad.
Yeah. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, everyone, we have more than 450,000 plus professionals who have trained from Upgrad. We also have more than 4,000 plus enterprise clients with Upgrad, and we are accredited to so many other institutes. Plus, we have 1,000 plus learners who are from across the globe. And as you see, we have 99% of examination rate, passing examination rate. This is something which we take a guarantee, or it's not a guarantee, probably we take an assurance that everyone who takes a course from KnowledgeHut can clear the exam. That is something we can vouch for. Yes.
Okay, so the project economy is driving most of critical initiatives, as we know. All right, so once you get into, next slide, please. Once we get into class, or once you move into class, I want to get to the point where, again, next slide, please. Either turn over the host to me or, so since we have mostly project managers, should be, or PMP aspirants online now, as I tell most of my learners in class, following process is easy. Dealing with people, stakeholders, that's the difficult part, right? Given that fact, and I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of that, if you had to pick a superhero that would make the best project manager, which one would you pick? That's a polling. That's a poll. Which one would you pick? So now, are you getting the poll? Because I'm not.
Yes, we are. Batman.
Batman.
Yes. Someone has written Iron Man, someone has written Batman. Great Spider-Man.
Yeah, there we go. That's me. I'm Spider-Man. Good. Okay, we can drive on to the next slide because the controls are not with me.
You have the control, Kevin, now. You can.
Okay, so what you're beginning from the master class, you can read this, but overall, while you're reading this, I'm going to explain in layman's terms, right? Overall, through my vast experience of different learners, different industry, just different verticals, some of the pain points and some of the drawbacks is actually some of the anticipation, right? Because again, the exam is nothing to play with. There does take a lot of stamina in terms of mental and physical, because again, you're sitting through an exam where there's 200 questions. So again, crafting a study plan, which we've already done. Like I said, I was hired on with KnowledgeHut some time ago and went back to being an independent consultant. But at the same time, I still work with KnowledgeHut. In fact, I just left a class from KnowledgeHut to join this. But maximizing your prep resources, mastering your time management, that is the key initiative right there, or one of the key variables, mastering your time management. Building mental stamina, like I said, accelerating your prep, which we will help you do that via class and some of the tools and processes and, well, toolkits that are on KnowledgeHut's portal, which you will be, as a learner or as a student, you'll be given access to. There's a varied amount of information up there that'll help you through that. Okay. Next slide, please. Quick question. Have you previously attempted the PMP? Well, no one may not want to admit that, but have you previously attempted PMP certification? Anyone? Okay, we have a few that have attempted it. I have an additional question to that. Was it the old exam or the new exam? The new exam came into existence in 2021, around the time COVID, 2020 or 2021. Was it, for the ones who've attempted, was it the new exam or the old exam? The old exam was extremely difficult because it had tons of formulas in it that project managers really don't need, because we have algorithms that are built in some of these software packages like Microsoft Project or _𝗪𝗹𝗪. All you can do is click a button and it'll give you your earned value management, critical path, and all that stuff. So just curious, again, was it old exam or new exam? I guess we can put that in the chat. Sina.
Yes,
New?
just new exam, old exam.
Okay. Old exam, you know what I'm talking about. So with the new exam, what was one of your major initiative or issues or blocking points or pain points with the new exam? Time. I bet it's going to be time. The time to study. Okay. All right, next slide. I don't have control of this, so you got to scroll through the slides for me. Okay, how many of you know the value of the PMP certification? You probably already know, because you wouldn't be on this call if you didn't, right? How many know the value of it? Another little polling question. Yep. So after you attain your certification, just speaking from my vantage point, I had a really good driver when I got my PMP back in 2015. That's when I obtained my certification, right? My objective was to start my own business, because I was tired of, me personally, I was tired of corporate America. And I wanted to move into my own business, my own PM software project management training and consulting. I did that. And it's been 9 years. I haven't been back to corporate since. So I had a huge driver, and it has benefited me drastically. I've expanded that over into Scrum and Agile in terms of my training capabilities. That was me personally. I've had colleagues whose salaries have taken a huge jump, not only salaries, but knowledge about how to actually run projects, because things, once you get that certification, things change. People look at you differently. The organizations that you are currently in or be moving to, they look at you a little bit, the expectations change, right? The expectations change to a higher level. Okay, next slide. Okay, so another poll, I guess. Number of people trained for PMP, number of people attends the exam versus the number of people passing. Personally, and some of my colleagues, I'm going to start with bullet number 3. I have not instructed a single individual with the new exam that has gone on to take the exam and did not pass, right? That's the new exam. Old exam, that's totally different, right? One of the issues, and that's going to be coming up next, with the number of people that are trained for the PMP, like some of my classes are maybe 30, 40, and 50 people strong. But rarely what happens is, and that's where the encouragement comes in at from an instructor standpoint. Once you've spent that time actually going through the certification training, right? Think about that. You're spending your time, right? And what I see moving forward, maybe 80, 85% of the individuals that actually take the course, not just Knowledgehut, I have colleagues across the globe, same conclusions. A lot of people don't move towards taking the exam. So with us, and especially myself personally, I try to push you throughout the duration of the course to make sure we bring up, highlight little instances where, okay, yeah, you're spending time, and set you up where you can actually craft out a schedule, AKA study plan, that's beneficial towards you, right? So that you won't drop off, right? That's a huge piece of training for this particular exam. You see a lot of people just, life gets in the way, and you're going to hear me repeat that a couple of times throughout this this short duration here. Life gets in the way, right? So the number of people that actually train for the exam, and then the number of people that attends the exam actually drops off. But the ones who do attend and follow our study plan, they actually pass the exam. I haven't had not one person. I've been working with Knowledgehut maybe 3 years now, meaning as an independent consultant or as an independent instructor. And everyone that has taken the exam passed the exam, right, based on their study plan. But you have to follow that plan and have some stick-to-itiveness, some indomitable fortitude with you, and crafting out your study times. Okay, next slide. Next slide, because I'm not. Okay. So studies show in 2023 by PMI show that only 65% of PMP certified professionals renew their certification after 3 years. And that varies. It depends on the situation. I'm not going to try to speculate on what everyone does, but people move on in their careers. Some people use PMP or project management as a stepping stone to senior management. So that varies. Next slide, please. 38% of respondents who received their PMP training actually took the exam. We just talked about that for various reasons, by the way. And again, one of the biggest reasons, other than what's on the screen here, lack of prep time, the exam cost that has a factor in it, the exam difficulty level. The exam difficulty level, that's really subjective, because your prep time, your preparation will take care of the difficulty level, right? It's an exam that's really beneficial and user-friendly compared to the old exam, where it was a lot of memorization in the old exam. Here, this particular exam is based around, and the course content is based around concepts, processes, and understanding, from running a project from starting to planning to executing to monitoring, controlling, especially your triple constraints like scope, schedule, and cost, and then closing out the project. It's more conceptualized and more process oriented versus memorization. So what we've done is, in lieu of PMI's course content, make sure that keep reiterating and recommunicating that it's about understanding the concepts and the process from start to finish, or from initiating to closing of a project. But some of the reasons, biggest reasons, lack of prep time. What we mean by that, what I mean by that is my experience is, one of the things I did, I give my example. When I was getting ready to study for my certification, I actually had because life gets in the way, meaning you have family items, family issues, you have families, work gets in the way. That all encompasses life. Well, the work part you really can't control. I mean, it has a finite amount of time. But the other part, life, I mean, you have social life, and then you have family life. What I did personally, just to give you an example, I actually set my family down, because I knew it was going to take a lot. And I took the old exam. So I actually set my family down and told them what was at stake, the reason why I was getting this certification. Actually, they're going to benefit from it. So I introduced some value props to them, my kids, and help them understand, okay, I'm going to be studying 2 or 3 hours in the morning, 2 or 3 hours in the evening, right? So some things for the next 2 months will have to be delayed or put on hold, right? It may seem rudimentary or really sort of non-beneficial, but life, when we say life gets in the way, life is people, the people that are in your life, right? What takes up most of your time? Well, in preparation for the exam, you're going to have to diminish whatever that time is. And my family understood that. So once I explained it to them and the value props and where I was headed with this, they sort of backed off, right? For those 2 months that I was studying. So that lack of prep time went away for me. I had all the prep time I need because I actually explained to my family what I was doing and why I was doing it. So you can take care of it from that vantage point just by picking, okay, I'm going to study from 7 to 10 in the morning. And well, somebody's going to get in the way of that. Somebody's going to show up. And if everybody around you, that sort of part of your life know that, okay, this person is studying at X amount of time and why, right? That takes care of your prep time. In terms of a study plan, in that prep time, you can craft out all the time that you want, but are you going to be using that time wisely? And that's where the Knowledgehut study plan comes into play, right? It puts something into play on each week on what you should be accomplishing, some of the goals, objectives, and also follow-ups in terms of mock exams out in the Knowledgehut portal. Even during the 5-week study plan, we have little assessment exams or assessment test from week to week. All right. And then in the end, there's a coach mentor thing where we can kind of counsel and confer with you on whether you're ready for the exam or not, based on your past performance over that 5 weeks. Okay. Next slide. All right. So another fact, according to 2018 study, which is some time ago, the global pass rate for the PMP exam was only 50%. That was the old exam. I'm pretty sure that has changed drastically for the people that actually go in, prepare, and take the exam. There's a huge difference in that. Again, a lot of people hear PMP or project management and come running, but they don't know what it takes or what it entails to actually prepare for the exam. That's where the problem comes in at. So knowing that in advance and spending time in course content with the proper instructor help you to understand that and get you motivated. So that after class, still direct contact, because I had 3 or 4 learners, even currently today, from past classes, still contacted me from via email or LinkedIn, right? So that number has increased because the exam is not as difficult as it was because of the formulas. Now, one of the things that makes the exam difficult is that the amount of information that has a whole lot to do with it. And that's why that repetitive studying, that crafted out prep time that you're supposed to be utilizing. Because if you miss one day studying this material, it's almost like you have to start over, literally. Okay. So individuals taking PMP training versus people giving PMP exam, right? All right. So again, this kind of precludes to what I just spoke about. The greater your chances are of passing the exam. Well, this is from my vantage point anyway, right? From giving the exam to actually taking the PMP training, especially with us, Knowledgehut, I know how I conduct my classes, right? So going through those training sessions and actually disseminating little items out of my toolkits, like little golden nuggets and constant conversation with learners, that actually helps. And I've gotten feedback from that. Even on LinkedIn, you look my name up on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of that out there. People think, oh, wow, the motivation piece was a huge factor in actually taking the exam and actually passing the exam. Next slide, please. All right, poll number 2. What do you think is the primary reason why people who receive PMP training don't take the exam? A, B, C, or D? Which, from your experience and from what you've heard from your colleagues? Okay, seems like the majority of it, as we are still receiving polls, is the lack of time to prepare. So if you know that going in, that's a problem that you can solve before you even start, which is, I gave you my example. Like I said, life gets in the way, work gets in the way. So in terms of making that decision, you already know the problem. Look at the poll, lack of time to prepare. Any problem can be solved. You know your life, you know your life habits, you know everything that's socially around you, you know your work site and your work hours. So that's a problem that's easily solved, right? Through conversation, especially with your family, like I gave my example, right? So you craft out your time, even if you have to get up a couple of hours early or stay a couple of hours late at night, right? Either way, since you're on this call, you're thinking about or have already decided to become a PMP aspirant. Because of that, that initiative in you is already there. So therefore, since you already know the problem, solve it before you even start go down that path, right? You know the time length is going to be at least 6 weeks. We have a program for 5 weeks, but again, you know, there's 6 weeks of your life for a lifetime. I took the thing back in 2015 and everything, well, I hate to say it, but everything financially has gone this way, right? So it has benefited me and myself and my family a great deal, but I knew that going in. So therefore, well, back then it was 2 months. That time frame, 2 months, 9 years ago, seems minuscule at this point, right? So all you're doing is crafting your building blocks for your career and for your family. It's worth 5 weeks of your life, your people in your life saying, okay, we can hold back for 5 weeks that you study for the exam, because you never have to take the exam again. Once you've passed, you're done, right? You have to craft, you know, do your PDUs, professional development units, every 3 years. But other than that, that's it, right? I've took my PMP back or passed my exam back in 2015 and have not looked back. It was worth 2 months of going to the library 6 hours a day for 2 months. That was my cost, right? All right, next slide. Keep moving. All right, so what are some of the key challenges? We just talked about that. What are some of the key challenges and roadblocks for individuals to clear the PMP exam? Keep moving. We just talked about some of the roadblocks, lack of time to prepare. Again, my example was life gets in the way quite a bit, and it doesn't really go much past that. It's pretty simple, right? But understanding material, and it depends on the type of instructor and the organization. Knowledgehut is a good one. It depends on the organization that you're paired up with in terms of your training. But some of the key challenges and roadblocks we just went over from a life standpoint, from a technical standpoint, understanding the material and understanding that it's not about memorizing. I repeated that, and you can't over communicate that. It's not about memorizing things. It's about helping you understand the process from a PMI standpoint. At the beginning of the first day, and I repeated throughout the entire course, life cycle of a course, you're learning a new language, right? That's one of the key challenges. The biggest key challenge, in my opinion, because I work directly with learners like yourself or PMP aspirants like yourself, is that when you come in, you have this thought process that you bring in from your job site, right? That's a totally different methodology. PMI, you're learning a new language, what I call PMI-ism. Almost like it's like learning a new language, literally, right? You have to understand their processes, their concepts in terms of how to run a project in order to pass the exam, right? So that is a huge challenge. You have to get people to rethink and in terms of their rationale on how to run projects and adapt themselves to the processes, tools, and techniques that's presented in the course content. Next slide. All right, Knowledgehut's PMP certification training course. That's one thing that I'm expert at because I helped build it, the training program. Like 𝗔𝗯cie𝘂𝘁 said, it's not necessarily a guaranteed pass 5-week study plan. It's your percentages are high. Like I said, me personally, I have not had anyone that actually prepared themselves and went and took the exam. The key is going to take it. Go take the exam. Once you've done that prep work, and then following that 5-week study plan, after you've kind of disseminated your life and making sure everyone understands, I'm going to be spending 3 to 4 hours per day, most probably 3, for the next 5 weeks or so on this material. If you can get that done, that's the biggest roadblock from the previous slide. That's the biggest roadblock, crafting out that time, like we already talked about. Well, they have 99%. I have not, and I'm God's honest truth, I have not mentored, coached, and trained any learner that have actually went in and taken the exam and failed. That is not a testament to me, it's a testament to them. They followed the plan, they went in and took the exam, right? If you can get past, prep time, utilizing all the materials on the Knowledgehut portal called Prism, you can almost pretty much say you're going to pass. I have not had anyone fail yet, right? Like I said, one of their policies, if you don't pass, you can get your money back. Also, I think we left off a bullet here. So now I've had I've got 2 people in my class from this morning that are back from other classes. Life got in the way 6 months ago, and they are allowed to come back and take the class again as a refresher. So that probably should be another bullet item down there, right? Because I see that quite a bit
Yes.
in my classes. Okay, other companies, I like this one. Other companies promise the world, but often end up teaching nothing about how to study, right? Which is their purpose of hiring me and the like. We had a whole team of people. It wasn't just me that crafted out this 5-week study plan, right? It's not just a plan. There's a lot of system-oriented deliverables like the mock exams. There's a ton of material out there that Knowledgehut has, and I like it, actually. No, I did not build all of that. That was more system and organizational oriented. But there's a lot of backup information from a system standpoint that rolls right along with that study plan. So within that study plan, you got a whole system that backs that up, right? So other than going through course content and understanding the course material and how to interpret PMI-oriented test questions, that's another thing I want to kind of highlight as well, interpreting those questions, and in addition to how to study, right? So that's a prevalent part of my learning experience or instructing experience. Next slide, please. Again, we kind of talked about this already, how PMP helps a career. 20% salary growth rate. I don't know where these facts came from, but I can attest to it that my salary rate was more than 23% when I got my PMP. 33% in job listings. There's a little spotlight video in the course content that talks about how PMI views project management globally, and even they, from a institute standpoint or de facto standard organization, kind of envisions project management going up, not down. Again, we as project managers, we work in a value-driven delivery system, right? And in today's society, economy, and industries, there's constant growth, right? Companies are vying against each other to make money. Making money causes new projects. There's projects all over the place, right? Amazon has 3,200 Scrum teams across the globe. That's a fact, right? So team leads, whether Scrum Master, PMP, what have you, there's a huge growth factor. You got to have someone to lead those teams. Next slide. Demand of project-based jobs. Again, that's what I just spoke about, right? PMI did a study on that, and it's in their course content about how they envision or how they know based on polls and surveys on how project management is growing. Again, because of the industries, because there's so much competition, especially in the for-profit industries, or even nonprofits, because even nonprofit industries, what they're trying to do is better themselves and better the services that they offer. Well, that comes through change. Change produces projects. Okay, next slide. Okay, we've been speaking this since we started, the benefits of becoming PMP certified, a wide range of career opportunities. You know my story a little bit anyway. Increase your chances of being considered for higher level positions, right? Like I said, a lot of people leave project management because it's a stepping stone, right? Either start your own business or they want to move into management, middle management, which leads to senior management. So that's career oriented. 3, get to work on more challenging projects. Yes, that is absolutely true. I was working some projects before I got certified, right? You know how you sitting at your workspace, someone comes dap something down on your desk and said, hey, implement that project. Now, it's probably going to be a small project, but once I attained my certification, oh, the projects grew in terms of difficulty, in terms of length. I did a project with a university down in Atlanta. It was actually a program. It lasted 6 years. It was a project to re-engineer their entire ERP system across 7 business lines, right? I was served as senior project manager and senior program manager, both, because again, it was 6 years. It took 6 years to do that. Within that 6 years, we had maybe 20 software projects off the shelf and development, and about 20 hardware installation projects. And like 6 of those projects were like hybrid projects. So I didn't get that kind of notoriety or offering before I got my PMP. So everything changed, right? Once you get that badge behind you, expectations change. And like the bullet point says, you get more challenging projects. Why? Because from a de facto standard standpoint or PMI standpoint, once they see that badge behind your name, hey, they say, okay, we can bring this person in, they can hit the ground running, right? Increased earning potential. We already talked about that. That is a definite. I've experienced it personally. I have colleagues as well who've experienced. I haven't had anyone who got their PMP certification and their salary went down. I've never seen that, right? So becoming part of a vast community of project management professionals, again, colleagues. I mean, when I walk into a workspace, I'm one of the large multimedia companies down here. One of the ones I had the privilege to work for because I had my PMP. Walk through the door, you have colleagues all over the place, right? And you trade off information, right? That your badge PMP and your colleagues, right? Next slide. All right, in terms of course content, if you don't know, it is posted on pmi.org, but the course content, I want to disseminate between the old course content, meaning the exam that I took, and what they have now. What the course content now, even the nomenclature or the naming convention of each lesson lends itself towards a layman's point of view from how you run a project. It wasn't like that with the old exam. It was all technical. It was all memorized. It helped, right? It really had you, doing some critical thinking. But the way the course content is set up now is pretty much how the environment or the working environment that we work and live in now is set up, right? So lesson 1, the business environment, they used to have the business environment last. I'm glad they put it first, right? The reason why I'm glad about that is because the business environment, that's intended from a skill set standpoint. And PMI has what they call a talent triangle, where it has 3 distinct skill sets that they feel that a project manager should have when attaining their certification. One of them is the business environment, having business acumen, right? So what they've done, and this didn't exist when I took the exam, that meaning the business environment. What they've done is added this skill set, which is a small portion of the exam, but it starts to get you to looking at your projects and your organization from a strategic standpoint. So helping us understand how our projects affect the organization from a strategic standpoint, internally as well as externally. And then right after that, lessons 2 through 6, start the project. Listen at the naming convention, plan the project, lead the project team while you're executing the project management plan, supporting project team performance, meaning monitoring your human resources and your system resources and your processes, and then closing out your project. So even the titles of the lessons are actually how a project is run. Start it, plan it, lead the project team in executing, support project team performance, meaning monitoring scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, and all the other knowledge areas, and then closing out your project. So that's the course content structure that you'll be going through as a PMP aspirant. Next slide. Okay, focus areas, focus exam success, which is pretty much the opposite opposite of what we talked about of things that block you, right? So understand, don't memorize. The old exam was about memorization. Even from the name convention of what we just looked at, start the project, plan the project, it's about understanding the processes, tools, and techniques within each framework of starting, planning, executing, and closing out projects. Understanding, don't memorize, and that's what the course content is. In my courses anyway, I have developed various exercises because everyone has not created, say, for instance, a WBS or work breakdown structure. So I have exercises to actually do that to help you understand how that process occurs. That's just one example. And then focusing on how everything connects logically. Again, from initiating all the way to closing and dealing with the various knowledge areas like scope, schedule, cost, and the rest. Everything is interconnected and interrelated. When they say focus on how everything connects, it's almost, as a project manager, and you should know this by now, it's almost like you're a conductor of a symphony, right? You're integrating all these pieces and parts throughout the duration of a project lifecycle. Also referring multiple resources to develop deeper insights, right? You get that during classwork, right? There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but you have your primary material like 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝘁, the Agile Practice Guide, and the course content. But there's other resources that will be made available to you. Like I said, I mentioned the KnowledgeHut Prism or KnowledgeHut portal for PMP. There's a vast amount of information. You won't have to go past that to get all the information you need, right? Consider this preparation as a course of a postgraduate program. That's a good one. Practice a lot of questions, analyze. I know for a fact that KnowledgeHut has like 8 mock exams, if I'm not mistaken. And then another, what they call exam papers. I don't know why I call them exam papers, no offense. But those are another set of exams. So it's got to be more than 5,000 questions, well, 4,000 questions out there for practice. And then lastly, manage your time. That is the biggest obstacle, managing your time, okay? Some of the effective methods to tackle the PMP exam that you will learn through taking our courses, avoid last-minute cramming. That's with anything, but definitely with this monster called the PMP exam. There's just too much information. Again, and that's another stickler, and that's one of the biggest roadblocks, because people don't expect, right? You hear project management and you think it's all fun and happy, go lucky, and oh wow. No, there's work to be put into this, because again, if you think about it, passing the exams is extremely important for a lot of reasons. A, we work in a value-driven delivery system. In other words, in corporate America, whether it's for-profit or non-profit, someone has put some budget money down and they're entrusting you with that. Therefore, they want you to have the right credentials and skill set to tackle this. So in passing the exam, some of the effective methods is avoid last-minute cramming. You can't cram for this exam if you try. It's just not possible. Too much information. Don't underestimate the exam. Going through course content, as we do, especially I know for a fact with KnowledgeHut, you'll start to understand by the second day. I start to hear from learners, oh, I didn't know it was this much stuff. Stuff meaning course content, right? Don't skip mock exams. That is a must. You got to have some practice before you even sit for the exam. I don't know if you've ever sit for a 4-hour exam, but that takes stamina. So that's an anxiety-related test, right? Because A, you've put a lot of time into studying, and then when you sit for the exam, you want to be drastically focused on these situational questions, right? So in order to prepare for that, like I said, KnowledgeHut has about 8 separate different mock exams out there for you to practice on. And my suggestion is at least take 2 of them before you take that exam, right? A, it gets you gets you into a mode of having, I don't know if you sit for 4 hours taking an exam and having to focus, but it prepares you from a mental and physical standpoint, sitting and thinking critically on situational questions for that length of time. Okay. Don't ignore your weak areas. That's the purpose of taking the mock exams, right? The questions that you continuously miss, say, for instance, you may be weak in schedule management. Therefore, you probably miss a lot of questions in schedule management. Well, what do you do with that? Well, you go back and revisit those topics around schedule management, especially in the PMBOK 7 and the course material itself, and a lot of the material that's on PMI, not PMI, but Knowledgehut's portal, right? So do not ignore your weak areas. That's the purpose of taking the mock exams, right? Avoid distraction. That's what we talked about earlier. Once you craft out your time and kind of pave the way with your lifestyle, and meaning your life in terms of your job site, and especially your family members. You want to alleviate all those distractions before you even start, right? And just stick to your schedule. Attack the exam. Don't be afraid of it. Attack it. And you attack it by preparing for it, right? Preparation is the key. And don't rush through your questions, right? I have little methods that I kind of train my learners on, or show my learners how to interpret questions. There's a process that you go through. First, you need to determine whether just an example, need to determine whether you're in the adaptive environment or the traditional or plan-driven environment. That makes a huge difference on your test selection, or your selection of your answers. So just learning, and again, taking the mock exams, you're learning how to kind of mull through those questions and start critical thinking while you're reading those questions. Next slide, please. Tips for exam day. There's 3 or 4 of them. Get a good night's sleep, obviously, before the exam. Arrive early at the testing center if you're going to a testing facility. They do offer 2 types of exams, and depending on what part of the country, what part of the globe you're in, what region you're in, you may not have a testing facility available to you. Well, Pearson is the administrators of the PMP test or exam, and you have an option to take a proctored exam, meaning at home or in your home office, wherever, or you can go to a testing facility. Okay. One thing to note: if you're taking an exam at home, a proctored exam, a lot of people don't know this, but it came out 6 months ago to the ATPs, or authorized training partners, and to the instructors as well. You don't get your results right away when you take a proctored exam. It's a 3 to 5 business day wait before you get your results, right? If you take it at a testing facility, once you finish your exam, you click in the exam, the little clock spins, and you get your results right away, right? Just a little tidbit of information that you should know about taking proctored exams. Not that it makes a difference, right? Read each question carefully. To be honest with you, repetitive studying will take care of that, meaning your gut instinct, right? So as one tidbit of information, the exam is 180 questions. Think about that, okay? You have 230 minutes to take the exam. That averages about 1 minute and 20 seconds per question. So while you're reading that question, especially if it's a situational question that entails about 3 or 4 sentences, which equates to a paragraph, you got to start thinking about the answer while you're reading the question, because you only have 1 minute and 20 seconds, right? And if you're not properly prepared through repetitive studying, following that plan, that's when you get in trouble, right? And I've seen that happen a lot on the old exam, right? Again, you got about an average of 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now, it's not going to take 1 minute and 20 seconds for every single question. You'll pick up time, because some questions maybe take 30 seconds to answer, but majority of them do not, right? But reading each question carefully, and again, learning how to interpret those questions. Manage your time during the exam. My suggestion has always been to learners: split the exam into 4 parts, right? 45 questions. You take 45 questions, take a breather. Do another 45 questions, take a 5 or 6 minute breather. All right, so split the exam in 4 parts. It's 180 questions, split it in 4 parts so that, from a mental capacity standpoint, you can keep track. Stay calm and focused. Well, preparation will take care of that. I mean, by the time I took my exam after studying for 2 months, I was ready, and I knew I was ready. So I was calm and focused because I was ready, right? Next slide. Okay, here's just some quotes from past learners. I don't know if you guys get copies of this presentation, but here's just some quotes. Take a minute to read these. I get them all the time for whatever reason, and I don't blame them. People love to, I mean, I get the emails all the time. Gavin, I passed my exam. Well, no, you prepared for it, but I love to see that personally, right? So I get tons of it. I get 3 or 4 every week. It's not just from present learners. Some people have laid off a year, they come back. And I had a person 3 months ago. He took the class back in early 2023, and life got in the way, right? And he reconnected with me 6 months later and started kind of asking probing questions, asking a good place to start. Said follow the study plan, but he would ping me up every now and again. And he passed his exam, and he didn't call his wife first. He called me first. This is a true story. He called me. He said, I hadn't even called my wife yet. He was excited to tell me because I kind of rode the wave with him, in terms of consulting and also kind of motivating, because that's part of being an instructor. I love to see people pass that exam because I know what it's going to do for your life, right? I know how it changed mine. And that was just PMP. Other things have, augmented my life. But this was one of the start of it from a business perspective. Next slide. Okay, some of the path to guaranteed success from a system standpoint. I mean, when I say that, I mean Knowledgehut's portal, right? Of course, you got to go through the course content, but they have, like I said, a bank of a question bank out of this world. There's tons of questions. If you want questions, something to apply to, and that's very important. That question bank, right? Because again, you can learn conceptually how to run a project, but you need something to apply it to. And that's where that question bank comes in at. PMP exam simulators. I can't see what's underneath. I have something in the way here. All right, so that's sort of the path to that. But the study plan, the mock exams, and then actually taking the exam. But we just walked through all of that throughout this entire presentation, right? So the path is already laid out for you. Your biggest challenge before taking the exam is finding the time and sticking to that time frame, right? Once you have a time frame, like hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the, I wouldn't really change that if I were you, right? Because it would throw you off a little bit, right? So this is pretty much the path that you should take. Well, that we kind of direct you towards.